It says I'm live just as the timer goes off at 8 a.m. Alrighty, let me arrange my material here. Clear away the reminders that keep popping up. Hi there, and welcome to this day in history for January 10th. January 10th is the 10th day of the year in the Gregorian calendar, with 355 days remaining to the end of the year, most years, or 356 if it happens to be a leap year. Today's word is shebang. I guess I grew up thinking shebang was a slang word, but there it was in the Merriam-Webster dictionary, so let's take a look at what it means and where it comes from. Shebang is a noun that means a primitive dwelling like a hut, or an establishment, contrivance, affair, as in a matter, concern, or thing, usually used with the whole shebang, the whole shebang. And it does sound a bit slangy, doesn't it? It basically means everything involved in what is being considered. It's not extremely clear the exact origin of this word, but the first definition of a primitive shelter may have come into use during the 1860s as a dialectical form of a French term for an informal building or shelter like a hut, lodge, or tent. A little later in the 1860s, its meaning evolved more into everything involved into what is being considered into that definition. There may also be a pre-1800s Irish or Scottish word that may have been adapted to these meanings. Most sources will likely say, though, that the first known use of the word shebang was in the late 1860s. And with that, the Rubicon is a shallow river in northern Italy, good bit from Rome, 315.7 kilometers or about 196 miles. The Rubicon River at that time was the northern boundary of Italy. This distance, by the way, is calculated on today's modern roads, which they had pretty good roads in Rome. Rome was all about the roads, but they certainly didn't have the interstate highways like we have now, or automobiles. But it's about the distance from Fort Worth, where I live, to Oklahoma City, where my family of origin lives, or from New York City to Cooperstown, New York, where the National Baseball Hall of Fame and Museum is. About a half a day's drive in a car on the interstate. But in 49 BC, it will certainly have been a longer trip on foot. Caesar had come to be thought of as the champion of common people. He'd advocated a variety of reforms, and the Senate had become fearful of him. He'd been ordered to stand down, but, well, he's Caesar, so. And so it is that on January 10th, 49 BC, that Julius Caesar crossed the Rubicon with his men, signaling the start of a civil war. The crossing of the Rubicon was quite something. There was no turning back now. Franklin James, the lesser-known older brother of the outlaw Jesse James, was born in Clay County, Missouri on January 10th, 1841. Frank had been part of the James Younger gang, and after Jesse was killed, Frank turned himself in and spent some time in jail awaiting trial, but was never convicted of any of the charges against him. Eventually, he was released, after which he worked quite a variety of jobs, looked after his mother, and lived to the age of 72. Florida became the third state to secede from the Union on January 10th, 1861. The first great Texas oil gusher was discovered at Spindletop in Beaumont, Texas on January 10th, 1901. 51 nations were represented at the first General Assembly of the United Nations in London, England on January 10th, 1946. President Lyndon B. Johnson asked Congress for more money to support the Vietnam War on January 10th, 1967. This war was going nowhere fast, and while the other side suffered many casualties, they did not show any signs of giving up. Desperate for more military funding, Johnson proposed a 6% surcharge tax on personal and corporate incomes. Congress approved it, but the American people didn't like it, not one little bit, as you can well imagine. Previously ambivalent citizens began to protest having to pay more taxes to support a war that appeared increasingly impossible to win. Consequently, Johnson's popularity waned, such that he decided not to run for re-election in 1968. His successor, Richard Nixon, most likely won on his promises to end the war. Released in December of 1965, the song We Can Work It Out by the Beatles is in the midst of a 2-week spot at the number one position as of January 10th, 1966. And that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for watching. As always, links to my sources are included in the rather lengthy video description. Thank you so much for watching. Give it a like if you enjoyed this video. Consider subscribing if you haven't already, and feel free to share if you find this kind of material interesting or informative. All righty, that is all for now. So we're going to go look for the thank you very much button. Have a beautiful day, and thank you so much.